From Tamil Nadu, Karaikal one afternoon, while Parmadattan was away on business, a wandering Shevite ascetic came to the door of their in the 6th century, in the coastal town of Karaikal, which is today a small enclave of the Union Territory of Puducherry, surrounded by Tamil Nadu, there lived a merchant named Dhandattan. He was wealthy. He had a daughter. He named her Punithavthi, which means in Tamil the one who is pure. She was, by every account, a beautiful girl. She had thick black hair. She had soft features. She was raised in luxury. She was raised, also, on devotion to Lord Shiva. Her father's household was deeply Shaivite, and from the time she could speak, Punithavthi knew the songs of Shiva by heart. She would dance them, in her bedroom, by lamplight, when no one was watching. When she came of age, her father arranged her marriage to a wealthy merchant from another Tamil town, a man named Parmadattan. The young couple settled into Parmadattan's town. The marriage, at first, was conventional and happy. One afternoon, while Parmadattan was away on business, a wandering Shaivite ascetic came to the door of their house. He was hungry. He was thirsty. He was dressed in rags. Punithavthi, in line with her training, welcomed him. She washed his feet. She seated him. She fed him a complete meal. Among the things she served him was a beautiful ripe mango, from a pair of mangoes that her husband had specifically asked her to keep aside for his own dinner. The ascetic ate the meal and the mango. He blessed her. He left. That evening, Parmadattan returned home and asked his wife to bring him one of the 2 mangoes. Punithavthi served him the remaining mango. He ate it. He praised it. He asked for the second. She had no second to bring. In her distress, and in her secret prayer to Shiva, a second mango materialized in her hand. She brought it to her husband. He ate it. He praised it even more highly than the first. But then he stopped. He looked at her. He said, "This second mango is sweeter than the first. Where did you get this?" Punithavthi, who could not lie, told him the truth. She told him about the ascetic, about the missing mango, about the prayer, about the mango that had appeared in her hand. Parmadattan listened to his wife's story in silence. He did not respond. He went to his bedroom. He did not sleep. He thought, all night, about what it would mean to be married to a woman who could produce mangoes from thin air through prayer. He thought about all the other things she might be able to do, that he did not know about. He thought about how lonely it was to be married to someone who was, in some very specific way, closer to a god than he could ever be. He thought, finally, about what people would say about him in the town if it were known. The next morning, Parmadattan announced he was going on a long business trip. He left the town. He never came back to her. He set up a new household in another town. He took a new wife. He had children with her. He named his eldest daughter, by his second wife, Punithavthi, after the wife he had abandoned, the only woman he had ever loved, the woman whose holiness had so frightened him that he could not live in the same house with her. Years passed. Punithavthi, in her abandoned house in Karaikal, lived quietly. She did not remarry. She continued her devotion to Shiva. She grew older. She heard, eventually, that her former husband had settled in another town, had married another woman, had a family. Her father, Dhandattan, the old merchant, was outraged. He gathered a group of relatives and went to find Parmadattan. He demanded an explanation. Parmadattan, when confronted, did not deny anything. He simply said, I cannot live with her. I am afraid of her. He took his second wife and his daughter and travelled to Karaikal with Punithavathi's father and relatives to formally end the marriage. When they arrived at Punithavathi's house, Punithavathi came out to receive them. She greeted her former husband. She greeted his new wife. She greeted his daughter, the daughter he had named after her. She was perfectly polite. She was perfectly gentle. Parmadattan, in front of his second wife and his daughter, then turned to Punithavathi and did something extraordinary. He fell at her feet. He addressed her not as wife but as goddess. He said, You are not my wife. You never were. You were always something else. I cannot worship what I was supposed to love. Forgive me. Punithavathi listened to this. She accepted the apology. She told her former husband to go in peace with his new family. She told him she had no anger. She said something else, however, that stunned everyone in the room. She said, I no longer want this body. I was given this body to be your wife. You have released me from that role. I do not need this beauty anymore. Take it from me. I want to be a ghost. She made the request to Lord Shiva. She asked Shiva, with absolute sincerity, to take away her beauty, to take away her youth, her hair, her soft features, her merchant-class flesh, and to leave her only as a thin, ghastly, ghoul-like creature, a thing that no one would call wife, that no one would call goddess, that no one would call anything except a hungry seeker of God. Shiva granted the request. Punithavathi's body, in the next instant, transformed. Her skin shrank against her bones. Her hair fell out in handfuls. Her teeth became long and protruding. Her eyes sunk into hollows. Her belly bloated. She became, in the space of a single afternoon, the most physically frightening figure anyone in Karaikal had ever seen. She was no longer Punithavathi. She was now, the people said, a Pei, a Tamil word for ghoul or ghost. Karaikal Pei. The ghost of Karaikal. She left her hometown of Karaikal. She walked north, all the way across India, on her bare feet. She walked through Telugu lands and Kannada lands. She walked through Maharashtra. She walked through Madhya Pradesh. She walked through Uttar Pradesh. She walked into the high Himalayas. She was a thin, ghoul-like figure carrying a single stick, with no possessions, with no fear, drawing the stairs of every village she passed through. She walked all the way to Mount Kailash, the sacred mountain in Tibet where Lord Shiva was said to live with his consort Parvati. She arrived at the foot of the mountain. She began to climb. She climbed for many days. She climbed up the bare rock. She climbed past the ice. She approached, somehow, the very door of Shiva's dwelling at the top of the mountain. Shiva and Parvati, the legend says, came out of their dwelling to greet her. Parvati looked at this thin ghoul of a woman who had crossed all of India on her bare feet. Parvati said to her husband, Who is this? Shiva looked at the small, gaunt, ghoul-like figure standing on the snow. He turned to Parvati and said simply, This is our mother. Avval enam amma. Our mother of Karaikal. Karaikal Ammayar, for that is the name Shiva gave her, the mother of Karaikal, had walked all the way to the top of the world to ask Shiva for 3 small things. She asked, first, that she might never again be reborn into a body that would have to die. Shiva agreed. She asked, second, that if she were ever again given a body, it would only be at the foot of Shiva himself. Shiva agreed. She asked, third, and this is the strange request that has fascinated Tamil mystics for 1400 years, that she be allowed to sit at the cremation ground of Tiruvilankadu, in Tamil Nadu, and watch Shiva perform his cosmic dance. Forever. Shiva agreed. Karaikal Ammayar then descended Mount Kailash. She walked all the way back to Tamil Nadu. She arrived at Tiruvilankadu, a small, ancient cremation ground in the Tamil countryside where, by tradition, Shiva performed the original Tandav, the cosmic dance of destruction. She sat down there. She sat down to watch. She never moved again. Karaikal Ammayar, sitting at the cremation ground of Tiruvilankadu, did not stop. She composed 4 collections of Tamil hymns about Shiva while she sat there. Her hymns, known as the Arpudat Tiruvantati, the Tiru Iratti Manimlai, and others, are the earliest known poetry composed by a Tamil woman that has survived. They are short. They are intense. They are written from the perspective of a ghoul watching a god dance among burning corpses. They are also extraordinarily beautiful. Sheikh Kizhar, the 12th century Tamil poet who compiled the Periya Puranam, the great hagiography of the 63 Nayanar saints, placed Karaikal Ammayar among the first and the most senior of the saints. The Tamil tradition treats her not as a peripheral mystic but as one of the great founding voices of the Bhakti movement. She was, in some Tamil sources, the first of the Bhakti saints, the woman, 300 or 400 years before Mirabai of Rajasthan, who said, I do not want this body, I do not want this marriage, I do not want this life, I want to watch God dance. And went, on her own bare feet, to find him. The Karaikal Ammayar temple at Karaikal still stands. Her 4 hymns are still sung. Her image, that of a thin, gaunt, ghoul-like old woman, is found at the feet of dancing Shiva figures in temple sculpture across South India. She was, the Tamil mystics say, the only worshipper Shiva ever called his mother. Tomorrow's story comes from another corner of India. Subscribe to walk with us through the folklore of every region, in your language.